Today, in my blind random guessing of what might get nominated for an Oscar, it's The Suicide Squad. Came out last year. 2021 Suicide Squad. Way better than the other one. In this movie, all the best supervillains that nobody's ever heard of team up to save the world. That's all you need to know. Well, first off, I'll just be honest and be like, this is a great movie. I was thoroughly entertained throughout the whole thing. If I was in charge of anything, I would definitely say it earns a nomination for Best Picture. And that's not just because I really like superhero movies. It's not just because of that reason. But I think it does a lot of things that are like really original in a kind of genre that feels like kind of devoid of originality at this point. Like, like every superhero movie is essentially the same. But here, because it's like super villains and and it gets an R rating, and like James Gunn just like, I'll just do whatever I want, and I think it all works out for the best. One thing that really stood out, well, everything stood out. I thought the acting was great. Well, the acting was really good for a movie of this caliber. It wasn't anything that made me go like, oh, they deserve an Oscar. Harley Quinn should get an Oscar. She'll get it anyway because she'll just steal it after. So, like, I guess acting-wise, nothing, like, stood out like that. Some of it was really funny. It was kind of like the jokes, like, nothing about it. It was like things were funny because of how over-the-top everything was half the time. Not so much because, like, anyone was telling, like, actual jokes. At least not in the way setup and punchline like you'd see in most comedies, It was it had a very specific tone to it that I don't think could be easily matched by anything else. Just trying to think of like an example. Ghostbusters kind of coming to my mind. Kind of maybe a little like Ghostbusters, just that like all the characters in Ghostbusters take themselves completely seriously, but because of that it becomes funny. Well, except for Bill Murray's character. I guess he was more of a jokester, but even he was almost a caricature of himself in a way, or not Bill Murray, but the character himself. I don't know if that makes sense. Moving on, but everything else about this film like really stood out. The action was great. The emotional parts really were emotional. Like if it was sad, it was sad. It was fun. It was lighthearted. It felt fun. The music was really good too, but the thing that really stood out to me like the most was the cinematography and the use of like different. A couple things stand out to me. Like they had chapter titles. It kind of made you think you were reading like a bunch of comics in a row, sort of like all in the same storyline, because each one was like Operation Harley. I remember was one when they were going to go and rescue Harley, but then it turns out they didn't have to because it's Harley Quinn. That's actually my favorite part of the movie, I think, because Harley Quinn just busts herself out and just kills everyone by the time they get there. She's just like, oh, you guys, I can go back in and you can rescue me. She's very touched that they came to rescue her. Actually, the guy who played Polka Dot Man stood out as a good actor. Guess I should look him up just so I know who he is. I think I know his name. It's not coming to me right now. David Dastmalchian. Dastmalchian? Okay, I still don't know who played. I'll just call him Polka Dot Man. That's his name. I think he was also in the Ant-Man movies, I think. As one of the buddies of Ant-Man, like the other ex-cons who were like all like friends of him from jail. I don't remember. I haven't seen Ant-Man in a while. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, Suicide Squad. Yeah, what a great movie. Oh, another thing that stood out to me with cinematography was like there was this one really cool like fight between I think Peacemaker was fighting somebody, but the whole fight was done in like Peacemaker's helmet falls off, and then you just see it through the reflection of the helmet as it goes around, like the camera goes around the helmet, and you see them fight around the helmet while that's happening. That's just really cool. Actually, like if this got nominated for best cinematography, I would not be surprised because it was like it really stood out in how good it was. But I think this movie really it breathed like a new life into the DC universe, or the DCEU as it's called. I think signing James Gunn off to do something like this was definitely a smart move on DC's part, or whoever's in charge of that, WB, because he's definitely a fun director if nothing else. I mean, the story was kind of simple in a way. I feel like it was kind of like a 1970s war movie, kind of. Or like a commando movie or something like that, where like they send like a group of guys in to to rescue something or do whatever. Like, you're on a secret mission, you can't get caught. You're the Suicide Squad, like an actual Suicide Squad. It had a very similar feel to that, except with superheroes. And I heard a rumor, and I don't know how true this is, but that the original villain was going to be Superman, and but Henry Cavill couldn't do it, or WB was like, actually make it something else. But then he chose Starro, and that was like such a great decision, really. But I would have been interested to see what happened with Superman. Like, how would the Suicide Squad defeat Superman, you know? How they defeat Sorrow is really cool. That was another thing that, like, really kind of, it was kind of touching in a way. I think it was partly because of the music they played, but they did, like, this whole slow motion thing, and Ratcatcher made a million rats just rise up from the underworld and and help defeat it. But it was really cool, and like I said, kind of touching in, like, an odd way. Maybe go, like, aw, why am I going aw at this moment? But I am. But it was so good and so much fun, really. And that was something I think that's been maybe a little devoid in the Snyderverse or whatever people call it now. Just not enough fun. And it's not like I don't know, there were parts that I enjoyed in those, but like I never felt like this is a good time. What an exciting movie for any of those movies. It's not the same, you know. Like, Snyder definitely does his own thing. And I enjoy the DC Snyder movies more than most people, I think. Except Batman v Superman, that one can go eat a dick. But everything else, I'm actually I like Man of Steel pretty well. I mean, I have problems with it, but I have problems with all the movies, really. Oh, I really like the Snyder cut. You know, that I think is especially good and kind of redeems almost the whole rest. Any problems I had with Batman v Superman, it's forgiven because of the because of the Snyder cut. But I could see, I don't know, I almost feel like James Gunn should just take like his own little section of the DC universe, though, and just do its own thing. And he kind of is doing that right now because he's making Peacemaker. But I'd be interested to see what he would do with like more popular characters, you know, like if he could make a Batman movie or even like a Flash movie or something like that. And anyone in the Justice League, I guess. If he could have any one of those people, like a Cyborg movie might be interesting just because he doesn't get as much screen time, it seems, as the rest of them. Except in the Zack Snyder cut. I mean, I think that's the only movie he's really in, though, anyway, so whatever. Just to, like, complain about the Oscars a little bit. Like, you know, things like this that are great, you know, that I'm going to say right now, I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. Like, but they're never going to nominate this for Best Picture. It's not artsy enough, you know. It's not shoved up its own ass enough, but it might get like a technical award or something. I'm glad they didn't start doing like the most popular movie award or some bullshit, because I don't know, they have too many awards already. But I do kind of think things like this that, like, I don't know, stand out in their own way, like, shouldn't be forgotten to the sands of history or whatever, just because the Academy of the Oscar bullshit, I don't know what they're called. Just because the Motions Pictures Association of America or whatever, or whoever's in charge of the Oscars, I don't know. It just seems unfair, I guess, that movies like this are always like passed over by the Academy or whatever, just because they're not artsy enough, or they don't do enough, or they don't say enough about the human condition or whatever. But like, just watching it's like, you know, this was a really well-made movie that hit all the boxes. You know, it has a good story, good acting, great cinematography, good use of music, whatever other categories, great action, you know. But because it's an action movie / superhero movie, the Academy's just like, nah. Stick to the special effects categories and ignore everything else. But it's just so rare, you know. I mean, we get like maybe like 2 or 3 every year of movies that come together so well, and like everyone does their, you know, you can tell that everyone who worked on that movie did their job and did it well. You know, they believed in the project, and that's so rare. You know, there's usually always some slip up or something like, this movie's great except the music sucks, or this movie's pretty good if you can get over the fact that one of the actresses is just awful or whatever, you know, like, but this is like, everything about it is good. It hits every box, right? Like I said, it's completely well made from start to finish. And everyone who worked on it was obviously an expert at their craft. But yeah, I'm giving this a 10 out of 10, and I think that's fair. This movie is a masterpiece, sort of. in its own way, this movie is a masterpiece. Also, Harley Quinn is amazing. And she should do more movies. What the hell? Where's the next Harley Quinn thing? Well, I guess that's it. I just figured out end screens, so I'm gonna have something right here for 20 seconds.